Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I think we still see some folks joining. Welcome, welcome, welcome to all of you. To all of you who are here for the first time, welcome to Wealth on Wednesdays, the In the Black webinar series. To those of you who are returning, welcome back. Today we are talking about managing money, women wealth matters, and igniting a D-free lifestyle in your church. And we have two very special guests, which you will meet shortly. But before you do, we just want to make sure that you know that every week we're here on Wednesdays to provide D-free discussion and guidance and resources and tools addressing debt reduction, credit repair, financial management through all kinds of recommended apps, websites, and resources. So we want to make sure you continue to come back. Before we dive in, we've got a few housekeeping rules. As you know, we're on a different format. And so we want to make sure that you see the chat feature. The chat feature is for open engagement and chat. We want you to talk to one another and converse. But if you have any questions, look for the Q&A box. The Q&A box is specifically for questions for the hosts and panelists, which we'll try to get to before the end of the webinar. This webinar will be recorded and shared with all attendees. You'll get an email from us, and it'll have the webinar link in it. In addition, there's a short survey at the close of this webinar. Please, please, please provide your feedback. Fill it out. This is the way we know how to best serve you. So at this time, without any further ado, I'd like to introduce our CEO and founder, Reverend Dr. DeForest B. Storage Jr., as well as Deputy Director Janiah Lake and Executive Director Tamika N. Stembridge.
Hey, good morning.
Welcome, welcome. I have no business being here today because this is ladies during Women's History Month talking about women and wealth, but you can't keep me away. So, and I actually had a meeting that ended early, but I want to say three things. Number one, let me congratulate you, Janiah, for helping the clergy in Memphis launch. I guess this is probably our second or third concrete citywide church coalition doing D-Free together. The first one we had was Indianapolis, and that was wonderful, but we haven't had a lot. You know, it's hard to get churches together. So let me congratulate you. They're very excited. I've gotten feedback from the field, and that's wonderful. And then Tamika, let me congratulate you for helping the Deltas in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Yes.
Chattanooga is a real up and coming area. I believe after COVID, we're going to see Chattanooga really, really take off. And you're going to be working with the Deltas. When is that? Did it happen last night?
No, it's on Saturday. We're doing
Saturday.
Yeah, they're doing a spring cleaning financial type webinar. So we're going to have a good time.
Yeah. Is it open to the public?
It is. I'll drop the link in it. They'll be glad to have you. Glad to have anyone interested.
Yeah. Well, and I'm excited about that because, first of all, we'll never have enough paid staff to do all the work ourselves. And our work depends completely on partnerships, organizations, churches, fraternal groups, credit unions. You know, we've got some credit unions that we want to talk to. If we can give them the tools and they can work with their people their way, then we can really make an impact on Black America. I think next week, my webinar that I'm hosting is going to be on student loans. I'm almost sure. I'll confirm that in 1 second. But what I do want to do, Janiah, is this. You know, we've got this group of ministers in Memphis. We have a group of clergy in Portland, and you'll be working with them starting next month. I worked with them on pastoral issues for the last few weeks, and they're ready for you. They're ready for Shonda. They're ready for the whole engagement team. So what I want to do is have a webinar where we have a representative from Memphis, a representative from Portland, and then we'll pull in Pastor Webster from Indianapolis as three examples of groups of churches, and to talk about how the benefits and to talk about the strategy, and to have the two of you on. So it'll be six of us. That's kind of a big group, but there'll be the D3 team, and then those three cities and I'm going to try to change the schedule of the webinars that I host and have it sometime in April, because coming out of COVID, people are getting vaccinated, people are reopening churches, they're reopening restaurants. I think we have to begin to think proactively about what the post-COVID strategies look like. And I think you've done a great job in teeing that up. So I'll get back to you on what the date is, but we want to get that done quickly. And then Tamika, you're having too much fun on Monday nights, young lady. You're supposed to be working. It's not supposed to be fun.
It's fun because the community makes it fun. So if you're new here, we are offering live check-in sessions as a part of our dfree Online Academy. And Dr. Soaries, myself, Janiah, and the Academy team are on every Monday night, answering questions, taking feedback, getting testimonies. It started out one step at a time. We were just kind of going through the course, and now it's become literally just a weekly community check-in. And so join the dfree movement formally, join the Academy, and you can hang out with us on Monday night.
Well, you'll be pleased to know that I do have a mortgage expert resource that understands what dfree is doing. And for the people, I think we had 2 people Monday night ask questions about refinancing, and they want to talk to a mortgage professional. And so I've set up some mortgage professionals who are not going to ram products down their throats, but help them understand their options. And then if they have an option that's good for them, then fine. But I want all of our people to pay the lowest interest rates possible. If you're going to have debt, you might as well be paying the least amount of interest that you can. And today, interest rates are low because banks are not. The central bank has made interest rates for banks so low that the whole system is suppressed from an interest perspective, which is it's bad for banks, but it's good for consumers.
Yep. It's all stimulating the economy. So if you got your stimulus check, do something positive with it. We'll talk about that later. But we got some exciting on the line today.
I want to stay on just for 3 seconds to harass one of your guests.
Okay. So I guess we'll introduce both and then break out for our interviews. Up, the lights just went off. We're in our new dfree office. I am, at least today.
Oh,
so
good. Welcome.
To keep the lights on.
We'll go ahead and just bring them on. So we have Pastor Connie Jackson from St. John Northwest in Houston, Texas. She's going to join. Our first conversation will be with sharing just some best practices that they launched off the Academy in virtual. So we wanted to hear from Pastor Jackson. We got to join a great Zoom session. We snagged some testimonials off of that session. So we're very excited for her to join us. And then we have Miss Judith Lee of Merrill Lynch. Make sure I don't mess it up.
Bank of America, Merrill Lynch.
Bank of America.
The Lee group. I'm gonna go ahead and say it. She has her own group, all these big names, and she has her own group within them.
Yeah, she's a star. She's a star.
Senior VP and Wealth Management Advisor. Did I get it? We good? There we go.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
So we're talking to women of the cloth and women of the dollar at the same time. This is going to be an exciting conversation. I love it.
Pastor Jackson, what church are you with in Houston?
St. John Northwest.
St. John. So is there St. John Southeast?
No, sir, there is not currently.
Oh, okay. I just want to make sure. Well, welcome. I know you've been working hard through this pandemic. Being a pastor during this last year has been harder for me than in all of my previous 44 years.
Wow.
So I admire you're still smiling and looking unscathed. So welcome. I'm getting off. This is Women's Month, but I had to come on because Miss Judith Lee has been persistent in her efforts to make me rich. That's one of her personal goals over the years. She's taught me so much, and she will not let me be poor. And so I want to publicly acknowledge her and thank her for all that she's done for me and my family. All right, see Judith, see how nice I was to you today?
Oscar, that's awesome. What a testimony. And this is a partnership. So this is a partnership. It's a two-way street. I give advice and you listen. So you've been a good listener.
Listen, I tell people Tamika and Janiah are my witnesses. Every question I'm asked about money, I include in my answer, but you need to talk to a financial professional. And you were one of the first professionals to help me with a part of my strategy. And I know you'd like all of my strategy, but you know, I'm Jamaican like you. So, you know, we don't put all of our peas in one pot. All right, I'm out. Bye, ladies.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Dr. Sophie,
Pastor.
for joining us.
Yeah.
All
Thank you.
right. Well, we're diving right in. Thank you so much, ladies, for joining us today. Our session is kind of going to be broken up into two parts because I think both of them are important when we think about how we approach dfree and working with churches and community organizations to launch programming. But then also the important part is to understand how to manage the money on the other side of it. So once you're activated, you know, how you go about partnering with experts like VP Judith Lee, I just keep saying that, to really help manage your money and take things to the next level. So Pastor CJ, is it okay if we call you that today, or would you like Pastor Connie Jackson? I'll stay formal if you like.
Good Lord, the less formal, the better.
All right. Well, welcome. Great to formally meet you. I've heard so much about you. I have not had the pleasure of being on the line with you yet. So I'm going to be a listener on this part because I need to soak up all the Pastor CJ energy. So I'm going to turn it over to Janiah.
All right.
Thank you. Hello, great to see you again. One of the things I wanted to make sure we shared with our audience and why this was something I wanted to do was I got on your Zoom that you launched, you set up with our training and engagement team, and I got to be kind of a guest. I was there as backup supporting the team. But I really, because I wasn't presenting or anything, I got to really take in the whole session. And it was so great to participate in, such great testimony. Pastor CJ, you have such great energy and leadership that I felt like, a lot of questions that we get from our community is always, what's best practices? What are other pastors doing? How are they launching virtually? And so I just thought it was a great opportunity to share you with our community as well. And so I wanted to just bring you on so we could just share with others, some of the things that brought you to dfree, what you're doing at St. John Northwest, and why you actually even chose to kind of launch this out during a pandemic virtually.
Wow. Well, one, thank you guys for allowing me to share your platform today. I'm absolutely sold out to dfree. I became acquainted with the church, of course, and Dr. Sories many, many years ago. Had a chance to visit the church and I believe heard about dfree sometime thereafter. And so of course I was not pastoring at the time, had no intention to pastor, no motivation, no incentive. Is that enough to pastor? And so, wow, I found myself, we're a relatively young church, St. John Northwest, the construction zone, where we are building lives and community through Jesus Christ, located in Houston, Texas. In a section of the city, northwest section of the city, that's called Acres Homes, so to speak, a low to moderate income area, probably about medium income is 44,000 a year. Have about 56% of persons with high school diploma and below. So those are pretty stark numbers. We intentionally located in that area though, because I believe why establish ministry if you go into a place where no one needs you really. And if Sundays and Wednesdays is all I get to do, I'm no longer a company woman. So I told God that, hey, if you'll allow me to really get my hands dirty, because that's my background, 20 years in government and politics, 10 years with an office holder, 10 years as an office holder, community development. So I really would like in this tenure of pastoring to integrate that which I've done in politics and government community development with our church. I like dfree for reasons. It's culturally relevant. It's faith-based. It's financially sound, and the staff are not gigging. Can I just say that? I believe what you guys have shown me and shown us is that this is your life's work. That you would do this over anything else. And that's probably the biggest selling point. If you're pastors or preachers on the line, these staff folks yeah, this is what they are called to do. It's not just a vocation, it's a calling. And so for me, that's the biggest selling point. And they know what they're talking about. Lord have mercy. Am just really thrilled to be connected with them. One of the reasons why this was so attractive to our church, and maybe you'll ask me a question about it. How do we pick dfree and why dfree in this time? One, I've been teasing out a financial component, financial literacy component for about a year now, just in preaching, hey, you guys, one day, I'm going to introduce you to this dfree program. And of course, by the time I say that about 50 times, folks are saying, so when are we going to start this? I went, oh, you guys really want to do this dfree thing? And so you tease it out probably over a year. And then when the time came and I got out of the way and finally called you guys, there was great interest. And of course, during the pandemic, when people are amazingly saving great money and wasting a lot of money, was the perfect time. People who are no longer, taking vacations and flying and traveling and going to malls and what have you, but at the same time, they're, Amazon is their best friend, HSN, all of that kind of stuff, right? And so when we launched it, folks were probably living quantitatively well, but qualitatively horribly. Made, really good money, but just misappropriating it. And so when we started this, there was lots of great interest to the young and the old. And I believe it's really blessing folks. So I'm hoping that's kind of a good intro as to why we started with dfree and why we'll continue to do it. In fact, I'm looking forward to teaching one of the courses myself. I really would like to do that and include more do it more from a biblical text piece.
Excellent. That's so great. That's a great intro, and that's everything that I seen in your intro session. And so one of the things we did is our team, got on with your folks on Zoom and walked them through using the academy, walked them through how to host their sessions, got you all set up. You have a really fantastic leadership team. Was there anything that you did in choosing those folks to lead, because we're going virtually? I know you all were looking for things that could be used virtually, and it was a perfect marriage in that way. But one of the things we get is, how do you choose who's leading the charge or who's leading the ministry when you do say, I'm going to get out the way and you guys kind of go forward? Was there any best practices on choosing?
That's probably the toughest piece, but when I put it out there, I was looking for persons who, one, I knew were already engaged in good stewardship. They were tithers already. I observed their lifestyle, and some people may think that's elitist, but I believe you can't direct people to a place you haven't gone. And this is not about the church so much. It's about the individual and their stewardship relationship with God. And so we have a person who's dean of law school, who is one of our facilitators. And then we have a person who is a tax accountant, but who's now retired, who has the ability and time to do it. And then we also have one waiting in the wings who is an insurance agent. So for me, those were persons who had already shown that, good stewardship and interest, the time to do it, and really wanting to help people get out of debt and then be successful in their financial lives.
Excellent.
I think
I wouldn't just open it up to anybody who says, oh yeah, I'd like to do that.
Yeah, I think your diligence in choosing is absolutely on point. We get a lot of people who, while you don't necessarily have to have a financial background to do it, you have to have the heart to do it. And to your point, around stewardship, we've had people that taught dfree that, aren't out of debt completely, but they've moved along the path. And having some experience and having that lifestyle element that you mentioned is super important. Oh no, we lost your video. It's really, really important to us to make sure that you understand that D-free lifestyle and can convey that.
Mhm.
There we go. You're back. How has your congregation responded to D-free once you put it out there? I know you kind of teed it up and people were excited, but once they got into it, have you gotten any feedback and how are they receiving it?
Yeah, so I asked our facilitators just to give me some testimonials of how things were going in class. So if I can share that.
Absolutely.
That's a good time. So you have one, she says, here are some breakthroughs from the class. There was a few who've made the decision to move from tithing on a net income to tithing on a gross income after putting together a spending plan. And then the realization of how costly cash advances really are. In addition to knowing that there is a fee and a higher interest rate than what's being charged for regular charge purchases. So I think people are just being more in tune to how they're spending and how much their spending costs them with credit cards. And then in shopping for a car, remembered to check out their credit union to get a better rate than what's offered at the car dealerships. And then many have begun investing. I did a Bible study, for the last few weeks, talking about the Egyptian economy in Genesis versus the American economy today. And how Joseph, when there was a 7-year famine, first took their money, then took their livestock, and then took their bodies and then their land. And it was shocking to them that the biblical text is so very close to what they're experiencing today in a contemporary. Yep. And then also, we had a person who identified that she was spending over $800 per month on eating out.
Wow.
The shock. That's a lot.
Wow.
And so now the testimony is that they have cut their unnecessary spending out by almost a third.
Wow.
And on their way. Yeah. Yeah. And she also, one of our, the one who's a tax accountant, she created a budget and expense template. I'm going to have her send that to me. She says that helped them to address the mess by logging all of their debt. And it helped them to identify where to start in their debt-free journey. So we've had a student, because she used that, she successfully paid off several creditors by using one biweekly paycheck to steadily crush her debt.
Wow. Excellent.
Thank you guys. It's working.
I love the practicality of the testimony. Like, it's tangible. You know, some people say, oh, I get so inspired and, you know, I just don't know where to start. But it's like, no, you take the step by step and it happens. It happens. We're excited to celebrate that with you all.
Well, Pastor CJ, do you have any best practices, or what would you recommend if there's other pastors on the line or folks thinking about this at their church, even in this virtual space, that we can help in the virtual space? Any best practices or things you would share?
One of the best practices, if you can do it, once again, we're a relatively young church. We're in our 4th year, but how we started out, we leased a former department store. It was a blank slate. And we wanted to build it out into a church. And one of the things that I told them was that we were going to develop an ethos of a debt-free church. And as the church went, so we wanted the congregation to go. And so what we have done, we have said, let's lead parallel lives. If the church is debt-free, what a shame it would be that our congregation would not be debt-free. And as much as you can, to lead with scripture, to show by example how the church behaves in its stewardship, and then challenge the people to follow accordingly. So we talk about it all the time. As we built the church, if you want to see it, you have to give it. But we don't want your rent money. We don't want your utility money. We don't want your car note money. We want the money that you have set aside in obedience to the Lord. And then that 90%, allow yourself to be led by the Spirit to be a good steward of that 90%. And so I think people have not been challenged in that area. And I would say, don't be squeamish about keeping the matter before them.
Yes.
Especially in this time. Once again, the scripture that we're using in Genesis, there were 7 good years of abundance and 7 years of famine. Don't ignore that prophecy. Don't ignore that time of preparation. They had 7 years to prepare for the 7 bad years. And most of us now believe this pandemic is a time of preparation.
Yeah.
Right? So I would say begin to prepare your people for what's coming. These stimulus checks, I told them, the stimulus is to stimulate the governmental economy. It's not meant to stimulate you. So I said, let the stimulus check stimulate your finances and not the finances of the local, state, and national government. They had not heard that. They went, wait a minute, is it a trick? I said, it's a trick. So if you don't have to use that money, they've gotten what? $1,200, $600, and now 14, right? I think some may have gotten, and that's just for folks with no kids.
Right.
So if you have children, you've gotten more than that. So you have this influx of money that you weren't expecting, but you have no plan for it. That's not even biblical.
Listen.
Right? That's not even biblical. We are most like God when we plan.
Yep.
So I would say best practices: be unashamedly forceful or pastoral in keeping before the people good stewardship, and to not couch stewardship in terms of what it's to do for the church. Couch good stewardship in the language of what it's meant to do for them, because God's church, as my young people say, gonna be all right, right? God's gonna take care of his church. But what a sad commentary that if the institution is okay and the people who give to the institution are failing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And there you have it. It goes full circle right back to why Dr. Sori even started dfree, wanting to help the people and not just the church.
Mhm.
Pastor DJ, I love you. I love you. I thank you. I thank you for being a part.
Asking for, will your team share with us that budget sheet? I think a couple guests were asking for it.
Yeah.
And we can share. I think it's a great thing we could share with Tamika Monday night. But I said, when pandemic is over, I'm going to Houston. I want to go see you all because I love you all.
Come on down, show us your vaccination card and you're in.
Listen, I'm halfway there. I'm almost ready. I'm almost ready.
Can I say one more thing that's happened for us? Not only the pandemic, but we went through, of course, this Arctic winter storm that was nuts. And what so many found out was that they were uninsured and underinsured. And a lot of seniors in our church, of course, did not realize that if their pipes burst, the insurance would pay for the damage that the burst pipes caused, but would not pay, of course, for the plumbing.
Wow.
And so what we've done in this season, because we're always looking for ways to express to them, because our church is always thinking about having something for a rainy day, we've been able to give grants for the plumbing work to our seniors. Wow. So that they're not out of that money. And so we take every travesty, every devastating event that happens to talk about how you living, right? What's your insurance like? Because if you don't have $600 to fix a burst pipe, and none of them did because it was unexpected, right? So we have been paying up to $1,000 for our seniors to get their plumbing fixed. And then of course their insurance pays for the sheetrock and what have you. So to always show our members, here's a best practice for me, to always show that we're here to help you with that which you can't do.
Right. Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. Please send our best to your whole team. And thank you again for sharing with our folks everything you shared today. It's such a blessing. Thank you.
Yes. And I hope if you have time, stay on. We have a couple Women's History Month questions at the end that we want to get comments on, if you're available. Excellent.
I'm
All
hanging
right.
out. All right. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. So how was that presentation for you all? The audience has been commenting. We'll definitely get the spreadsheet out to you all. Really exciting to hear from our dfree churches. Everyone does it a little bit differently, and we didn't really get into the customization piece of it, but every pastor's approach, every group's approach is slightly different. And it's always encouraging to hear how people are using the dfree principles. And she truly is a dfree church. Like, this is like insane from start to finish. This is really, really exciting.
Absolutely. Well, let's bring on Miss Judith Lee of the Lee Group of Bank of America Merrill Lynch.
So what I'm going to say about Judith, if there's been some questions in the comments about investing and strategies for what to do with your money, this is the woman to teach you how to do it. I've never seen someone so passionate about finances, particularly for women and managing their money. Judith, your background and everything precedes you. Tell us who you are and how you kind of got into the space that you're in right now, because I know you're getting ready to tell us some really exciting things about money. And so I have my notes ready, but tell us about you
Okay.
first.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Good to be with you on this, sharing the platform with all these amazing women during Women's History Month. First, I want to acknowledge Pastor Soares, who's been my pastor for almost 30 years, for his vision in starting and leading the dfree or financial literacy and empowerment movement. First in our church, in our community, across the nation, and now globally. And I jumped on the bandwagon very early in the days or in the inception of the dfree ministry. So I am a financial advisor with Merrill Lynch. I've been doing this for the last 2 decades or so, really advising individuals and families on how to achieve their important financial goals. This was a second career for me. I had always had an interest in the financial markets. I think I bought my first mutual fund when I was in college.
Wow.
I got hooked on the movie Wall Street. And so, I always had an interest in that area, and started out as a branch manager for a local bank, and then quickly realized that I wanted to make a career out of this. I wanted to expand my knowledge and be able to have a bigger impact in helping individuals and families more holistically. I also am passionate about the fact that there have been, well-known historical impediments to building wealth in the Black and African American community. And so it gives meaning and purpose and passion for me to be able to have an impact in, spreading the word about the roles that each of us can really play in terms of our own attitudes and our own behaviors about saving and investing that can greatly impact, our wealth outcomes. And so I lead a team of 4 individuals at Merrill Lynch. And, as I said, my goal is to really be able to, have an impact in families across our communities.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So today's topic is Women Wealth Matters. I know you have this niche, like you're focused on the
Yep.
family, but you really,
Yep.
really care.
Yep.
And you have a position on kind of women and the role that we play in money management. Can
Mhm.
you talk a little bit about that? And what are some of the differences, I guess, in terms
Mhm.
of the way women manage
Mhm.
money versus men, and kind of how that shows up in your work?
Mhm. Sure. There is no question that women do face some unique challenges in terms of, their finances. Number one, women face longevity risk, and that simply means women outlive the men in their lives. Okay, statistically, women live an average of 5 years longer than men. And that presents some challenges to ensure that your money is around for as long as you do, as long as you are. Women tend to, be out of the workforce for periods of time throughout their lives, whether caring for children, young children, or having to step away from the workforce to care for aging parents. So women disproportionately still have that responsibility on them, despite the fact that it's 2021. We know that across households in America, that women disproportionately, have those responsibilities. And as a result, by being out of the workforce, it means that we're not then able to contribute to, continue to systematically put away money in retirement plans and, not have a break in terms of saving. So the longevity risk, the fact that women still make, a fraction of what men make doing the same job. Granted, we've made great strides. Just to share some quick statistics, women are starting businesses at 4 times the rate of men. 58% of women are earning bachelor's degrees. 85% of women make consumer purchase decisions. So we know that the women are making decisions around what car to buy, what kind of furniture to buy, where to take the family vacation. We know that when a woman reaches age 65, there is a 65% chance that she's going to live for 22 more years. So we can find ourselves being retired for longer than we were working. And so it's incumbent on women to ensure that the minute you start working in your 20s, if you have an employer retirement plan, start contributing to that retirement plan in your 20s, because waiting 10 years in your 30s can actually make a difference in terms of what that nest egg is going to be 30 years from now. And we're talking about, in some cases, hundreds of thousands of dollars in difference if you wait 10 years. Women tend to work in, service industries. So for example, women have been hit disproportionately harder than men negatively as a result of COVID. More women work in industries where they were laid off. So whether it's the hospitality industry or the restaurant industry, women have been impacted. So more women have lost jobs because of COVID. Women are being impacted from a psychological standpoint because they're now working from home remotely, but also have to still take care of the lion's share of the responsibilities at home, and child rearing and helping kids with homework if you're a single mother. So I mean, just across the board, women are being impacted disproportionately. And so this is a subject matter that's near and dear to my heart. And providing financial literacy around these issues is really important to me.
Excellent. I was going to say, with those statistics, and I think we've also seen that as we've done, these webinars throughout the last year, and our engagement with folks and helping people, through dfree, programming. What are some things that you suggest? On one hand, people are looking at what to do with their stimulus and talking about savings. And, as Pastor Jackson shared, they're really thinking about, how to save, or what do they do now? And even conversely, people that are retired, we kind of get these questions a lot. What do I do with my stimulus? What would you recommend in my retirement? We kind of have two different segments. There's suggestions that you're giving to the folks that you're helping with around those two areas.
Sure. I think that debt reduction. So if you've got a credit card, an outstanding debt that you can write off by using a stimulus check towards that, I would say get rid of that consumer debt. So I think that would be priority. Certainly, you want to have the ability to save a portion of that if you can, and save it towards shoring up that emergency fund. It's been difficult to really start the process of putting aside money for that emergency fund for the inevitable. We know you're going to have a tire that blows out. We know you're going to have an appliance that breaks down. So I think shoring up emergency funds, okay, or adding to your rainy day fund, as well as using a portion of that stimulus check to retire, a debt. I think those would be the two primary, suggestions. And if there is, adequate emergency funds, and you don't have debt, perhaps you take a portion of that money and look to invest it in a vehicle where you can get, some good growth over the long term. Because building wealth is really about maximizing your earnings during your prime earning years. It's really as simple as that. Building wealth is about saving more of what you earn and investing more of what you save, period. And I think that is something that I think is empowering, because it really speaks to the choices that we make about how we spend. And I think that what is most transformative, or can be most transformative about what has happened in COVID, is that it has caused us to kind of reassess what's really important. So now we see that, it's not going to kill us to not have to go to the mall every week to spend money. So I think it's been forced upon us to really come to terms with some of the behaviors that we had that was really undermining our ability to really, shore up our financial well-being. And my advice is take heed. I don't think anybody should come out of COVID the same way they were going in. There's so many important life lessons to learn as it relates to our behaviors around our finances. So I think, again, I can't say it often enough. Building wealth is about maximizing our earnings during our prime earning years and managing debt, managing consumer debt. There's good debt, Pastor Soris talks about, and there's bad debt. Owning a home is good debt. Owning, so that's good debt. Consumer debt, because you're spending money on clothing and so forth. That's not good debt. Not when interest rates on the average credit card are double-digit returns, interest rate. So that's really what I think, to really focus on.
Excellent. Wow. I don't think I've ever heard anybody say it that way. Maximize your earnings, save more of what you earn, and then invest more of what you save.
That's right.
That distinction, investing more of what you save, not necessarily, invest more of what you earn. Like there's an order of things, and we talk about it in dfree.
Got it.
You earn it, you pay down debt, you create your emergency savings, then you start to invest, then you start to protect it. Just layering it in the way that you just said it. I had never heard it said that way, but it makes perfect sense. People go from earning to investing, right, and forget the savings part. And so then if something happens, you're either pulling from a 401k or you're cashing out investments. But if you follow the order of things, you really start to have significantly better, returns over time. This is a really good question. But I have a question specifically around retirement. So what pieces of advice would you give to the three different types of people? So people that are novices around retirement, maybe they're younger, they don't see retirement, far off right now. If you're experienced, or if you're in retirement, like what three pieces of retirement-based advice would you give for those of people?
Okay, great question. So if you're younger, recognize that you have the magic of time on your side. What does time give you? The ability to compound wealth exponentially. So compounding wealth is interest upon interest. So magic of time, and you do that by enrolling in some sort of systematic saving. So whether it is your 401k, where they're taking out X% of your income every pay period, or you set up a savings account and you automatically have X amount of your paycheck go automatically in that savings account. But we've seen statistically that, and all evidence shows that if it's done in a systematic and automated way, you're going to be able to save. So when you're young, again, start early. When you are, the other thing too is to recognize that with time on your side, be careful that you're not, that you're taking advantage of investing in instruments that can really appreciate over the long term. So I've found that individuals might, because of a lack of education and a lack of financial literacy, that you might tend to, because you're, you're uninformed, too risk averse, and risk averse to a fault where you have too much of your monies positioned in vehicles where you're not going to get growth. The longer your time horizon, okay, so if you're in your 20s and you're investing in a retirement plan, to have those that money invested in these low return vehicles because you're afraid of investing in, let's say, stocks or equities, that's going to be detrimental because your money is not going to be growing at a rate where you're even keeping up with inflation. So educate yourself. For someone who is closer to retirement, understand that you have now the ability to have increased contribution limits in your 401k, for example, or an IRA. So right now, if you're under 50, the maximum that you can put away pre-tax in a 401k or 403b is $19,500. But if you're over 50, there's another $6,500 added to that amount. So you can put away $26,000 a year pre-tax, and that's before there's a company match, if there's a company match to add on top of that. With an IRA, the contribution for 2021 pre-tax is $6,000. That reduces your taxable income by $6,000, but you're funneling money for your retirement. And then the catch up, if you're over 50, is $1,000. So if you're over 50, that's $7,000 that you can still put away in a retirement plan. Now, for someone who is very close to retirement, one of the things that you want to pay attention to is what are the election options that you're considering, for example, for Social Security. I believe the stats is that over 60% of individuals start taking Social Security at age 62. And guess what? I've never met someone in their 70s who's not said to me, if they started taking Social Security at 62, I wish I had known better. I wish someone had informed me that I should look at the options that are available to me. Because had I known that I could have gotten $500 more in my check by waiting until I reach full retirement age, which for most people, it's over 66, I would have rather take a part-time job to wait until I reach 66 to get that higher check. So understand the implications, particularly if you're married, that you look at the options because it might make sense depending on which spouse has the higher earnings history. Maybe you elect that the spouse with a lower earnings history, you start to take Social Security earlier. So maybe you start to take Social Security. If you can't help it and there are limited sources of income, there's no pension, and you don't have enough savings. So sometimes you might be forced to have to take it at 62. But let's say one of you take it at 62, but you delay the higher earning spouse. So then you can wait until, let's say, the husband or wife, whichever has the highest earnings history, they wait until they're 66 and a half or even 70, because guess what? Every year that you wait to draw Social Security between your full retirement age, which is 66, or usually between 66 and 67, there is an 8% guaranteed increase in your monthly income check between full retirement age and age 70. So some people, if you've got longevity on your side and you're in good health, now granted, I know we can't predict when you're gonna go, but if you've got other sources of income, you've been able to build up your retirement nest egg, you have a good pension, and you really don't need to draw that Social Security before 70, it might make sense for one of the two in a relationship to wait. So those are some of the examples. The other thing is when you're retired is, I've seen too many instances where grandparents are bailing out grandchildren for foolishness. Okay, I understand in our community in that we oftentimes have to help other family members. I get it. That is what is unique across the board in our communities. We're helping out aging parents. We might have to help out a sibling. But when you have situations where your oxygen is failing and you got to take care of your oxygen first before you can help anybody else. That's what they say when you get on an airplane, right? But I've seen too many instances where you have, parents or even grandparents bailing out, okay, and putting themselves, in financial detriment because they're, bailing out a son or a daughter or a grandchild. And so I just say, be careful about that. Be careful about that because it's really about personal responsibility. And so, I think that's important for me to go there and say that I'm seeing too many instances where, there needs to be a kind of stepping back and making sure that I'm taking care of myself too.
Listen, and this is why I love Judith Lee, because that one moment right there where she took the hat off and she put it on the side and said, listen, this is what you're gonna do. I'm excited because we're going to be doing more with Judith and having her, I'm gonna just go ahead and put it out there publicly now. I need a masterclass with Judith Lee on retirement and money for women, because this is the kind of granular depth we need people to be thinking about retirement planning. We got some great feedback. I just want to tell you, we have one comment, a woman who's 70 years of age and she was able to wait to draw, and she was so happy that you offered that piece of advice because it's been, really a blessing to her. And the questions are going crazy about Social Security running out. Let's see.
One question before we open up to all the other questions. One of the things we get asked a lot, Judith, is, we do tell people the importance to, like what Dr. Sori said, of finding a financial professional, right? So everything that you talked about is things that we want people to engage with their financial professional and start to talk about that. One of the things we get is, how do I choose? There's so many places out there, how do I, interview them? How do I know who's a good financial professional? Anything you have to share as we, always instruct them, and we have partnerships and such, but how would you help them with, how do they know that that's someone that they should trust, or how do they feel, or how do they choose?
Great question. I think a good place to start is ask individuals in your own circle. Do you have a relationship with a financial advisor that you're happy with, that you'd be happy to refer? So I think ask around in your circle. I think that, now in the world of the internet, you can certainly do your internet searches. I think there are certain credentials and distinctions that as a financial professional may have. I happen to be a certified financial planner. I believe in that particular distinction because that distinction says that you've had the requisite experience and you've sat for a very rigorous exam that provides you with overall comprehensive training to be able to help individuals in a comprehensive and holistic way. I think another way is when you meet with that person, if they're doing all the talking and there's not a lot of opportunity to listen and understand why you're coming to them, what are your goals? What are your objectives? What are your fears? What is it that you're trying to accomplish? So that first meeting better be a meeting where that person has a yellow pad and a pen, and they're just writing stuff down and they're asking a lot of open-ended questions. If you meet someone within the first 15 minutes, they're pulling out a brochure to try to sell you something, run the other way, okay? Because it would be like going into a doctor's office, telling a doctor that you have a pain in your side, then the doctor starts to prescribe something for the pain in your side and hasn't asked you one question about the other stuff that might be going on to find out what could be driving that pain in your side. So I think you will have a gut feeling about who is the right person that you think really cares. But I think that is the best advice. Is this person asking you all the right questions to really determine, what is it that you want this money to accomplish? What is your experience in terms of investment vehicles? And I think that is really paramount. So ask around, definitely check the internet, find out, how do they get compensated? Is this a commission-based relationship? Is this a fiduciary relationship where there's a higher standard of care? And everything is transparent and you know how they're being compensated. So I think those are some, I think, really important suggestions.
Excellent. Excellent.
You got the gospel.
Outside,
And
yeah.
the people want more Judith Lee. We have tons, tons of comments.
Can I just say one important, when we talked
Absolutely.
about retirement, and I just want to throw this out there because I have had situations come up where when it comes to making elections about pension distribution, be very careful, particularly when you're married. Be careful about those pension elections that you choose, because it can have a irreversible, and serious implications for your income in your retirement years. So for example, I had a situation where, for example, you might have a individual who worked at a corporation where they have a very strong pension income. And the pension income that pays you the highest amount is usually based on a single life payout. So it's the highest amount based on a single life payout because the payout is only based on one life. So one might be inclined to say, you know what, heck, I'm going to choose that higher payout amount. But guess what? It's the highest amount because it comes with the greatest risk. If that person keels over a year after electing that plan, that money is gone. That money is gone. And I've seen situations where the spouse didn't realize the implication, right? So obviously we can't predict when we're going to die, but do you really want to take the risk, or do you understand the implication that if you pick that higher amount, your spouse has nothing to get the minute you pass away? Okay, so maybe it makes sense if you don't have other means of getting income, that maybe you take the slightly lower amount that might be 20% less, so that your spouse is going to be getting an amount after you pass. So just want to put that out there again, that it's important to talk to a professional when you're reaching retirement age and you have to make those pension elections to make sure that you make the right decision that works for your family.
Oh my goodness. I could sit and do this all day. I know Reverend Sutton, our lovely host, is on because she's like, the time, right, you guys. But this was really good. And we have the chat. And so we'll make sure that we go through all the questions and compile them, one for our session with Judith. And if there's anything we can answer, we'll definitely do that. We did have a poll for today. And so while we do our wrap up, I want to bring the poll up really quickly, just to get a sense of where everyone is in the process. I wanted to do this before Judith came on and I forgot because I was so excited to talk to you. But if our team could pull up the poll, just let us know kind of where you are. Are you a business owner? Are you retired? Are you retiring within the next 5 years? Are you employed full-time, or are you a stay-at-home parent? I should have put all of the above as an option because I'm sure there are people that fall into almost every category. But this was excellent. And thank you guys so much for participating. Shonda, it's all yours.
Pastor Connie, will you come back on too? We'll do a little farewell. I know we're running up on our time here.
But let me say this. I just have to add this. anyone who decides they want to talk to Judith Lee for advice, make sure you have at least 30 minutes, at least, because it's going to take her 30 minutes to just get warmed up. So if you don't have 30 minutes to an hour, don't call her.
That's why she gets a master class very, very, very soon. We're working on
I
it.
just wanted to add that. All right, goodbye, ladies. Good job. Great job.
We certainly want to thank both of our special guests for coming on today. Thank you, Pastor Connie Jackson, also known as Pastor CJ. We appreciate your insight to our churches. And thank you so much, Judith Lee, just for your insight and just enlightening us as women as to how we can spend our wealth or make wealth and not spend it. But we have so much activity in the chat. We're going to respond to all of these questions. You'll see those answers in the email that we're going to send you along with the recording of this particular webinar. We want to encourage everyone to continue to come out on Wednesdays because it's chock full of information, as you can see. We also want to remind you that we have the Academy, the dfree Online Academy, and we are beginning a second cohort. Now we're getting ready to graduate the first cohort, those that started in January. We actually just finished session 9, but it's not too late to jump in. So we want to make sure you come in on Monday nights. There's a whole lot of activity in the chat there, a lot of best practices, a really great community forum, but we're also going to have a second cohort starting in April for leaders and churches and organizations. So we want you to come on and learn more about our dfree Online Academy. In addition to that, we want to remind you, don't forget about that short survey that we have at the close of this webinar. If you want to contact us, that sheet is coming up for shortly. You can contact us at mydfree.org. That's www.mydfree.org. That is our website. Here's our Academy slide. Yep, so you can see that. And you can also sign up for the Academy and register for the Academy there. So we want to make sure that you do that. In addition to signing up for the Academy, you can contact us at info@mydfree.org or our telephone number, which is 844-693-3733 if you have further questions. There's also ways to contact Judith Lee, and you'll see her contact information there. Make sure you screenshot it. And if you want to get in touch with Pastor Connie Jackson, also known as Pastor CJ, her information is there as well. We want to make sure that you continue this dialogue because it's been so interesting, so rich, and we want to make sure that you benefit from what we have to offer, what dfree has to offer. Last but not least, we want to remind you that our next Wealth on Wednesday series, our next session is an Ask the Expert session. So we'll be here next week with an Ask the Expert session, which Dr. Sori has mentioned. So please come back next Wednesday. We look forward to seeing you. Look for our email. Don't forget about the survey and have a great week. God bless you.
God bless you.
Thank you so much, ladies. Great information.